In the last 18 months, you have been told in 100 different ways from 100 different directions that if you're not moving on AI right now, you're already behind. Every vendor, every newsletter, every conference keynote, every LinkedIn post from someone who just discovered ChatGPT is urgency, urgency, urgency. And I want to ask you something. Has any of that urgency actually helped you make a better decision, or has it mostly made you feel like you're missing something without telling you what to do about it? Here's what I know after 45 years in the industry. The technology sector has a name for what you're feeling right now. I call it the urgency factory. It is one of the oldest plays in their playbook. Create pressure, blur the picture, profit from the confusion. They did it with cloud. They did it with ERP. They did it with digital transformation, and AI is the new label. The playbook is identical. But here's what the thing that nobody is saying out loud. The business leaders who win in the AI area or era are not going to be the ones who move the fastest. They're going to be the ones who move the smartest. And those are not the same thing, not even close. I'm Jody Jankowski, founder and CEO of Blackline. I've been on both sides of the tech table for 45 years as the engineer building systems and the business leader buying them. And today I've got Jonathan Fiala, president of Next Day Plus, and he is not a tech guy. He is a business leader running a real company, making real ID decisions without a team of IT people holding his hand. He has bought things that worked, things that didn't. He has pushed through staff resistance, and he has told vendors no. He has figured some of this out, and he is going to tell you exactly what that looks like from the inside. No demos, no pitch decks, no conference keynotes, just two business leaders having an honest conversation about what is real, what's noise, and what you can do about it. If you've got an hour, this is the one. So, Jonathan, if you wouldn't mind just doing a quick intro for everybody out there.
Sure. Thanks, Jody. So I am president of Next Day Plus, Jonathan Fiala. We are a copier dealer that focuses on managed print in nationwide, all 50 states we service along with Canada. We were founded in 1998, and my job is basically the operational side of the business and business development of larger accounts and pushing technology wherever we can, leveraging it to make sure that we streamline everything and keep things efficient and moving.
Okay, so you're an operations expert and you're an operator as well.
I am an operator.
Okay, so let's set the context of this conversation. So every podcast this week is going to tell you AI is changing everything and you need to get on board, and we're going to do something different. The AI hype cycle is running the same playbook the technology industrial complex has used for decades: great urgency, promise transformation, profit from the confusion. And if you've been through a cloud migration or an ERP project that didn't deliver, you've seen this movie. AI is just the new real, but the projector is the same. So instead of talking about tools, we're going to talk about judgment. How business leaders actually figure out what is signal and what is noise. And Jonathan's going to tell you what that looks like from inside of a real business. What has been your journey with technology and your technology role within NDP, so you can set the stage for everybody before we dive in?
Sure. I started looking at AI fall of 2025. I said, okay, there's a new wave of something coming. I need to figure it out. I didn't know much about it. I started investigating around October, November, and I committed 20 minutes a day to myself to be like, just do something with AI, read about it, take a webinar, research it, use it, whatever it is. And by January 1st, I was neck deep in it. I was probably running around 2 to 3 hours a day. Fast forward through January, I can't live without it right now. So everything I do right now, I'm using AI in some support, either a consultation point, a review, an analytical of a data sheet, anything like that. Everything I do today is focused on leveraging AI and figuring out what it's going to do for us.
Okay, so take us back a few years before fall of 25. All right, like just even like it was 10 years ago, was it 15 years ago, where the tech function kind of fell into your lap as the operations guy? Give us a little bit of the last 10 years.
Sure.
And then we'll dive into AI adoption itself.
Yeah. About a little over 10 years ago, we had a very simplistic setup for IT. As our business grew, it had more demand, and that demand created more IT needs. And I was tasked to kind of figure out how do we handle bigger nationwide accounts more efficiently? What are the resources that we need? And that was kind of like the step to the new world of IT for me and leveraging technology wherever possible in the business. We were smaller, so every dollar was a big growth dollar for us, and every expense was a big dollar for us. And so fast forward through that, we were able to leverage technology, make things more efficient. Blackline, you guys came on a little around 10 years ago, I would say. And so IT and technology and running the business is hand in hand. Like there's not IT is just a budget line. Now, IT is part of what we do. Nothing, no decisions that we make, you know, we don't factor IT into it. We take on new resources or new employees. We say, okay, what does that mean from an IT standpoint?
Mhm.
So is there a budget? Sure, there's a budget, but if you're growing and you want to do some type of new opportunity, you have to leverage technology to say, okay, well, how can technology help us? And also, how can technology keep the expense of the opportunity low? Right. So, what kind of automation we can do? What kind of IT infrastructure can we do? And that's kind of why AI and myself have had a nice partnership over the last several months.
So what you just said, and just from the perspective that we've had, is that you're a believer. So we look at somebody like yourself, the business leader like you and what you've done, is that you started out very early on as a believer in how technologies were going to drive outcomes and additional value for the business, as opposed to it was just like a necessity that I have to spend money on. Okay, and that there's a key distinction there because you actually said it in how you described it. You were doing both, driving efficiency, using these technologies to create efficiencies in the business so you could capture more value from what you've already invested in. But you also saw it as in order to get in the new markets, in order for us to compete in those markets, in order for us to get and capture more market, you had to take advantage of opportunities that technology offered. That's when you started
Correct.
taking and you transitioned to an ERP solution, which was very painful. I know to go from like a single database system to a fully functional cross function ERP solution. So it's important. I just want to point out as context is that your mindset from a very early on was an innovation mindset. That's what I call it. The innovation mindset, that innovation and technologies are going to drive change. So with that being said, how does that match the way that you're living today? Let's just look at it from that mindset perspective. How does that match where you are today?
From an innovation standpoint,
Yes.
I mean, I look at technology at this point is my forefront of solving every problem we have. Is what's the newest tool that works? How does it apply to the business? How is it going to make us go farther and faster? Is it going to hinder us? What's the price point and the ROI? I mean, there's a million metrics on everything that puts in front of me. From a pitch standpoint or an opportunity of leveraging technology. And so that's like back to AI. The value that a set that I see in it is allowing us to innovate in different ways, allowing us to be challenged in different ways, and challenging each other through the process.
I love that. That's what I call the digital mindset. And you see, this is crazy. So what you see challenges and opportunities from a digital mindset. You see it as like there's a digital solution to this,
Correct.
and your mind automatically goes to let's get this infinite leverage that tech gives us. Like those are the words that you're saying, and that's why I've seen this advancement in your own journey, and I've just experienced it over the past few months. It's kind of crazy. So let's do this. Let's move on to our first topic. And let's dig into this a little bit more because I can't wait to hear your perspective on it. So AI skepticism. So this week, Goldman Sachs put real numbers on AI job displacement. Anthropic raised $30 billion claiming their AI works autonomously in Excel and Gmail. 30 billion. Like, first of all, that just is a number that is really hard for me to conceptualize. One organization controlling that much money and then getting that influx in cash. Side note, that's real. But here's the question nobody's asking: who benefits from you feeling urgency right now? Your skepticism isn't a weakness, it's your radar going off. Whenever we've had the conversations in the past, right, you've got this natural kind of skepticism, which you should, by the way. That's radar. I want to call it radar. Like your natural radar goes off when it comes to new tech. The problem is knowing which doubts to keep and which ones to drop. So talk to me. Where are you skeptical, and where has that skepticism cost you, or where that skepticism has helped you?
I am skeptical on the external sources saying that in 10 years and 20 years, we're not going to have jobs and robots are going to do everything. I'm not there. I can see why they're going there. From an AI point of view, at this point in my journey, I see too much value that quiets any skepticism I might have. I'm still very sensitive to the data protection of everything within AI because it's a new technology and we don't really know where the boundaries of security is yet. They can talk about it all the time, but when you buy a Mac or a Windows based program, there's knowledge base there of what security is and how they manage to it, and you're going to get updates on a certain cadence. With AI, it's a little different because it's in a little unknown world. But hopefully that answers it.
What you're saying is that, and I love that perspective, which is it's job displacement is one of the fears, right? So think about this: the TIC operates, the tech industrial complex operates on fear, urgency, right? Shiny objects, right? Oh my gosh, you have to have this, or you're going to fall behind, and then also let's just call them empty promises. So you're a business owner and you hear job displacement, and that tends to pique people's ear ups, right? Which is, oh my gosh, I can do the same thing, but I can have 30 or 40% less, headcount. Tell me about your specific viewpoint. I know a lot about this, but I think that people need to hear about your specific ideas about job displacement with AI.
I think if a company is leveraging AI to remove jobs, those jobs shouldn't have been there in the first place, is my opinion. For our company, we're pretty lean. We've always leveraged technology to stay lean. So for me, AI is not removing jobs. I was very, very clear with my staff on that. Like the moment I really started digging in, I stood up in front of everybody and I said, I want to be very clear. I don't care what the world is saying and all the external sources, but for me, my AI journey will not end with removing jobs from the company. And the reason why I said that was I knew from the side conversations about like, well, what do you think about certain people saying that we're not going to have jobs?
Because that's all they're hearing too.
Because that's all they're hearing. They're not hearing anything from us. And those side conversations, what drove me to be like, yeah, okay, maybe not all my staff feel that way, but I had conversations where they asked that question. And it wasn't they were like, what are you going to do? It's like more like, what do you think about them saying that? Right. So clearly there was something there. And so I stood up in front of everybody and I say, like, AI is not going to replace anyone's jobs here. We have a solid team. We leverage technology. That is not my game. My game is to figure out how AI is going to be leveraged to make the company go farther and faster with less effort. And when I say less effort, that means you guys are going to produce more with doing less work. So that's a win-win for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
As a business owner. You're going to be happy because your job pressure is going to come down.
Yeah, the cognitive load, sure.
Because everyone knows that a small business, everyone wears multiple hats. So your workload's your pressure is going to go down. Your workload's going to go up, but you're going to be able to do more with less.
So how did they react? So that's a great message, by the way. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit in AI adoption. But just before we do, I'm just curious how they reacted to that messaging.
I think I overdid the messaging. my operations manager in one of our meetings came to me and she's like, Jonathan, I want you to know that no one feels like you're trying to get rid of jobs using AI. I'm like, okay, so good. Everyone got the message. We could move on. So it was a positive effect. And I think, you know, I'm not a genius at AI or communication, but I think by me being transparent and saying, look, this is where I feel we're going to go. I don't have an answer, but I know I'm not looking to get rid of people's jobs. And I think me standing up in front of everybody and saying that
Mhm.
had some weight, right? And then as time went on, as I used it, I used my case studies of like, look how I used AI to do this for you or your department.
I saw that
us.
you sent me that little graphic you
Yeah,
did, and then a little bit of the data that came along with. Could you tell? That might actually go into AI adoption. I'm going to move that, and that's the next topic.
sure.
We're going to put a pin in that because I think that's a really important thing. Before we move on, um, just to tie into what you had just said. First of all, that's AI leadership. So that's how I see what you just described, and that's something that the rest of people who are listening to this, the leadership and the way in which you approach it is just as important as the technology. It doesn't matter what you change in a business, how you lead that, how you communicate it. So we're going to talk about change management in a second. And also it's important. It's not going to be getting rid of jobs. It's going to make your jobs easier. What I hope people understand is that tasks are what people do. Jobs are just kind of a collection of tasks to be performed. And throughout all of human history, we've automated tasks to be done by machines.
Correct.
Just do a search. There's nothing new.
Nope.
It's like AI is not some kind of a new thing. It's just you have these collection of tasks, and guess what? Half of those could be done by a machine. AI being that machine. The rest of it, we need the judgment of the individual to actually make decisions around that. You just don't want them doing stupid things with typing. So let's go into AI adoption because it kind of ties into just one step here. So enterprise companies have IT teams. They got sizable budgets, change management playbooks. SMBs have a group chat, email threads, and maybe some loose change. So it's the adoption isn't the tools. It's the same three gaps we typically see in every technology decision. Can a leader articulate what in business terms is needed? Is the person advising them qualified or unconflicted in what advice is being there? And then does the organization have the systems to manage this new tech and this change? Kind of back to you got security concerns and then what does this do in terms of changing systems, if you will, that not even if it's not technical system, the systems at the business, the workflows, right? This combination of people and system itself. So tell me about, tell me as a contrast when tech adoption stalled, right? What happened, what you did about it. And then we can kind of come back around to the change management concept of, getting, because you've done change before, technological change, right? So let's talk about stalled and then let's talk about within the context of AI.
Sure. We had a project that lasted 3 years. That was a cloud-based system for our field team. And it was a constant stall.
Yeah.
From politics of software providers to configuration problems to environmental problems. And, it's really hard for staff to have this positive thing that is being communicated and talked about and like, hey, you're going to get a new tool, right? Because you dumb it down. And then you have to go to them and say, yeah, but we're not going to get it this month. Maybe, you're probably going to get it next month. And then it stalls again. And you're like, okay, we're not going to get it this month again. Well, we're shooting for 3 months now. And you have this constant carrot dangling aspect, I guess you can say. And it got to a point, this specific project that went sideways multiple times, unfortunately, where I was just dangling a carrot constantly. I felt like I was getting to the point where it was like, I almost don't want to even talk about it anymore because I don't know anymore on when it's going to launch. Even though we were making progress, it was like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And so I pivoted and I communicated that. I said, look, there's been a lot of stalls and I've been dangling a carrot in front of you and I don't want to dangle it anymore. I'm working on it where it's moving forward, but I will round back when there's significant updates versus a projection of install date or deployment. And so that actually made me as a business operator to say, why do we put deadlines on things, right? Like, sure, you want to get it done,
Mhm.
but if you're not confident in that deadline, all you're doing is creating anxiety around the project of everybody it's going to touch, right? So this piece of software was going to touch probably a quarter to 50% of my staff, and I was just constantly like, "Oh, we're going. Oh, we're not. Oh, we're going."
Mhm.
So from a stallment, like communication is key, and luckily, God, thank the Lord, we did launch in fall, and it went really well, and everybody was super excited. And I think the communication pivot to be like, okay, know that it's coming. We're just not gonna
Okay.
put a deadline to it.
So let's drill in a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Because you kind of just glanced over it, and I want some of the details here.
Sure.
Okay. Right. Which is, it was a vendor thing. It was an understanding of maybe the workflows that you were trying to automate. So if you could break it into three categories, right? Your competency in that solution, the vendor's competency, right? The vendor that was bringing the solution, and then the organization's competency to be able to implement that. If you could break it in those three categories, how would you describe, like, where some of the problems were, or where some of the challenges were? Because AI adoption is going to be very similar. It's going to be in those same three kind of buckets. So what comes to mind?
So for this particular project, the vendor was the main issue. There was politics because they were bought out by SAP, and there was all transformation of the product, and who's responsible. So that was a large piece of it. But going back to another implementation I did in 2016 when we installed our ERP system, that was also a very dark project that had stalls and issues, and it was a vendor problem again. So, I'm seeing the trend on these larger implementations that it is a vendor problem where and I think it's a misalignment of expectations where it's like, well, you're the expert. I don't know. I don't know. I know I want your system, but I don't know how to implement it. And they kind of fail at the implementation piece of it. So for this project, it was a lot about the vendor, and it was a lot about the politics around what happened during that time and being acquired and all that. But once the dust settled, it was about the knowledge of the product and the people who were actually capable of providing a solution to me for the product. It wasn't like 400 people I can go to be like, well, I need this, this, and this done. Can you do it? And they're like, okay, yeah, here's my price. Like, I have 400 people to choose from. And that's not the case. It was a very, very small pool. And when I say small pool, I'm talking globally. I have access to resources globally. And there were not a lot. And then when I say not a lot, I want to say, I think I have 2 quality people as a resource and 3 mediocre.
Wow. So that's a serious supply and demand problem, which means it's just going to jack up the price and slow things down.
And
right?
it all came from being the transformation over 3 years of it was one product and one support system on year 1. And then by year 3, when we actually launched it, it completely
Right. So
turned upside
the vendor shuffled the deck on you,
Yes.
and you didn't get a chance to cut it.
No.
Right. So
You're not part of any decision making.
You just got dealt cards and said, you like them or not.
You got to deal with it.
Right. Right. So that's,
we dealt.
and so there's another angle to this. I'm curious because it's also the organizational readiness, right?
Correct.
Of, yeah, you got the start and stops, etc. But what was there, or can you describe, like, once you started rolling that into the business, that this is the change management. Now we're going to bring it back to AI in a second, because I think it's incredible. It's important to distinguish that technological change is just meant of the tool. Right. So talk about the organizational kind of change adaptation to new technologies in general. What have you seen? What have you seen that works and what doesn't work?
What works for us is over communicating, being very transparent on what is the tool, why are we having this tool, and how is that tool going to change my job? And once you decipher that, then you can communicate to each one of those departments of like, this is coming, this is why, and this is how your work is going to change. And they buy into that, and not buying it like, hey, I'm selling you something, buying
Mhm.
it, but they're like, okay, cool. I can envision that being a value add to what I do. And the more you can hit those targets with all those, department heads or even the boots on the ground,
Mhm.
especially, the easier the change management is going to happen once you deploy it. The less you spend in that, and you kind of just have to shove it down their throats, because they're going to be like, yeah, cool, yeah, I'm good, right? And it's like, well, no, I don't think you are. Like, it's going to be a big change. So you have to really think through this. Let's ask questions, ask everything you want. You want to see it, I'll show you pieces of the software, how it's going to change. So the more communication you have, the more success you're going to have, right?
Okay.
And,
I love that.
yeah,
Okay. First of all, there's something to point out to anybody that would be listening to this podcast. So that's leadership again. Okay. This is technology leadership. What typically happens, and we've seen this all over the place, is that technologies are thrust upon people without the communication, without the why. Figure it out. Change management is not even even a speck in their heads. And it creates a lot of anxiety, it creates a lot of instability, it creates a lot of resistance. I used to do it this way. You're telling me to do it this way. I wasn't part of the decision. Therefore, I've got no obligation or accountability to it. Like, there's all kinds of change management stuff. So I just want to point out the fact that that is an important distinction. Within the context of AI, now I want to come back to the pin. You sent me that cool little email that said, we looked, this is what we found. You created a little cool AI generated graphic, and you had some metrics there.
Yes.
That, to me, describe, because that is also, right, an adoption conversation.
Correct.
That's a communication thing. Can you talk a little bit about that specific project and what you saw? That was a very quick turnaround.
It was.
So let's talk.
It was a big win.
Yeah.
Quick turnaround. This goes back to communication. So we have a leadership meeting every 2 weeks. And I walked in one day because I had lots to talk about. And I said, one of the agendas, like, I want to hear all your ankle biters. Because at this point I was using AI myself solely in the business. Nobody else was really using it. And I could see the value of turning around the ankle biters of all the departments and having just really quick wins. And having quick wins is super important in change management, because then that gets people to really feel the vision and feel the changes as a positive, not a negative. And they start asking the questions, right?
Mhm.
And so this particular one was an ankle biter for our accounting department, where our process, once an order gets done, it gets checked against credit automatically. But if there's not enough credit for the customer, then order processing has to go to accounting to say, I need a credit limit increase for this customer. And then accounting has tasks on making sure that they're up to date, like what's their credit limit now against account balance, average date of pay. There's a whole process to that. And it was an ankle biter because it's needed to be done, right? But it gets annoying when it's good customers buying more from you,
Right. You're
and
like,
you're constantly adjusting credit.
yeah.
And so, when you do a gear shift in work, right, you're doing one task and then you have to totally gear shift to a different task. It's not 2 minutes. Oh, it'll just take me 2 minutes. I love when my staff says that, like, oh, it'll just take me 2 minutes. I'm like, no, it won't take you 2 minutes, because you're doing one task and then you have to change your brain to go work on a different task to be like, okay, now I have to solve that, to then go back to your original, and you're going to go, where was I? Wait, oh yeah, I already reviewed that. Or like, okay, now you're adding time to it.
Yeah.
And so it was an ankle biter in accounting. It was also an ankle biter in orders, because you're like, I have to stop my work. I'm trying to process orders to then go to accounting, and then sales. They get bombarded at the end of the day because any order that was on hold because of credit gets approved, and then they get dumped more orders in a batch versus, a trickle through the day. So they're trying to do proposals, and then they got 20 orders that they got to do. So it was 3 departments all having ankle biters in
I
the
like it.
same
I see
address.
it.
And I said, okay, well, I got to solve this, because this is, 3 birds with 1 stone if I could solve it. So I went to AI. I knew what the problem was, and I knew why we.
So you could describe the problem very well.
Correct.
Very specifically.
And that's put a pin on that, because that's extremely important in the AI world.
I agree.
Is because we've done it. We've tried to get an automated process to do it, but the customers' buying patterns change every day. And so I went to AI and I said, okay, here's the problem. I know what's broken, right? But I have to get to a point and not spend 4 hours. That was the problem. It was like, where on my priority list is this? Like, it's not a bad thing that we're increasing credit for good customers. It's not like it's bad customers. And I worked through it. It took me about, I want to say, an hour and a half throughout a couple of days of just putting in data, it's spitting back, working with it.
You're ideating with your
Correct.
AI, right?
Think of it as like a consultant. It's not an answer repository.
This is a good thing for people to hear about the way it actually works.
Yes, you have to work with it. It's, if you think it's just going to give you the answer, it's not it. And me using it, it's not that I don't know what to do, but I'm trying to find the fastest solution to resolve this. I know how to do it. I was missing some of the equation, and that's because I didn't have the time to figure it out. We got a rough draft beta version of the change that we're going to make, and it was actually 3 major SQL queries for our ERP that we put on a schedule to run every night. And it looks at the there's about 8 or 9 metrics around the account, which I could do manually, which is important to know. Like, you need to understand how to do the work for AI to do the work for you. And so we built 3 queries. And so every night it looks at every single account based on order patterns or highest order months, account balance, utilization against credit, average day to pay, all the length of the account that's been with us. And it determines how much to increase that credit limit automatically at nighttime. And then as I was using it, this is one of the really, really strengths of, we use ChatGPT, so I can't speak to the other ones, but it says, well, if you're looking at the increase, you really need to look at decreasing credit limits based on certain metrics and when to put people on credit hold. He's like, this is more of a credit management strategy versus just a credit limit, which I understood, but right now my ankle biter is
It's increasing it, yeah.
So we figured out the increase, and that was working. I looked at the data before we deployed. I'm like, yeah, this all makes sense of where it wants to increase it. And then we went after the decrease and we built the query and we looked, I'm like, yeah, this all makes sense. And then the third was the credit hold when people really were significant.
Yeah.
Whatever. So we launched it, and it went a little sideways. And this is where judgment comes in, and that AI is a tool and not the human that knows everything, is because it's the one who built the increase. It's the one who built the decrease and the credit hold. And what we saw the day we implemented it, as it ran every night. So by the second or third day, I figured it out, like what was going wrong, is it built it so when it would increase the account, so that query would run and increase, but then 5 minutes later, the decrease would happen. And it increased it past the metric that would actually push it into a decrease, and it would take it back down. So it was stuck in a cycle, but it built it. It knew I'm helping you build an increase and I'm helping you build a decrease, but it built it not thinking how the two are going to live together.
Okay. So let's pull that apart a little bit, and let's, cause we can make this generic for anybody, right? So the idea of deploying AI for you was you ideated with it, and it's an iterative process, and you also have to validate the output that it's going to give you all the
100%.
time. That is what I believe any business and any business leader has to understand, is that it's not a magic box. It is going to be doing inputs that you give it as gospel, whether or not it's correct or not. That's why your prompting has to be very specific, has to be very narrow. AI needs to have really good understanding of context. And you gave it context because you understood the problem very well. So if you want to call it, point number 1 is you have to understand the problem really well. Because most business leaders that are going to be watching this, and most operators in general, they know the problem well. AI is a great way to talk through, get that really isolated, and then go with a solution, whatever that solution. You had queries, you had a platform you could work with, but you know how to use platforms like that, whereas maybe everybody else doesn't have that access. Okay, so you got to bring in somebody who's can be able to do that. But what the business leader can do, based upon what you did, was You also did not let that thing run without having validation. There's a QC process. And what I want to highlight is something which is just the way technology operates. This has not changed since I've been in this business for 45 years. And it's a term everybody's heard, garbage in, garbage out. It is no different with AI. You probably have seen that. If what you give it's just a system. Yeah, it's an intelligent system. It can do a lot of complex things, but at the end of the day is what are you giving it? And then whatever comes out, even if the intention was to give it accurate information, it could hallucinate. It could make judgment decisions which are not right. So I just want to kind of point out what you just described is that I would call it a framework. You just described a framework.
Yeah, and I would actually redefine the phrasing garbage in, garbage out, because that means like you're knowledgeable about putting in garbage. Like I'm being lazy at what I want to ask it, right? It's more of you need to understand what your end goal is and work backwards from there, right? So you know, like, okay, my goal is to fix credit limits. Like it needs to know that, right? It's not just so much of I have this problem, how do I solve it? It will tell you that. But if you're like, well, no, I have, thousands of customers ordering thousands of times a day, and I have credit limit, like it needs to be very specific to what your goal is. And then you use the words to like facilitate to get to that goal.
Which is going to be a skill that you just have dedicated some time to because you're building a skill, which is a prompting skill. Right. So something else I want to point out. One is the approach of there's two things. There was a communication thing that you did, which I really love. And the other thing that I really love is you created a very narrow scoped project that you knew what you wanted as an output. That is the way that you implement AI right now. The way you implement AI is exactly that. You take a very narrow scope, something that you can measure, and it doesn't go off crazy. It's like, I can see this exact. I love that. That's a great way of utilizing AI in these early stages. And then you communicated that right back to the team. Yeah. I love that. You made it fun. It was like, here's what we found. This is what we did. Guys, this is what we did. And I think those little wins get you the team like on board.
Yeah. And that's where like change management needs to continue on. So like when people talk change management, they talk about the project being rolled out, right? And the bigger and more complex the technical aspect of it, let's say, the longer it's going to take, right? So it's not like, oh, we're going to roll it on Monday and then we're done. And by Tuesday, no one's going to think anything twice. Usually it's like, no, for the next few weeks or the next few months, we're slowly going to do this in phased approaches. And so as you roll it out, it might not touch certain people in the business yet, right? So they just know it's happening. It just hasn't got to the department. And so what I like to do as much as possible is push out a company-wide email like that one, make it fun on whatever what we're doing of whatever department had the win, and then kind of put the metric to it like, well, because people in the warehouse don't understand what's the big deal of having 15 credit limit requests a day, right? Sales knows it, order processing knows it. So you kind of have to bridge that gap to make sure that this is a team aspect and be like, hey, we're all in this because at some point this year, every department's going to have this win, whatever this win is going to be. And we want to make sure that all departments are celebrating each department on the win of it, the new AI.
The new AI, yeah. Right. And having, and that's back to the communication thing again. I think there's no understating of having your team as partners in this would be a recommendation that I would make as well. That's been any technology. So this is not just AI adoption. It's anytime you put technology into somebody's world that's intended to make things better for them. At times it does make things better.
Sure.
Okay. So that is a philosophical balance, right? The balance of you're trying to innovate. You see the big picture. It's going to temporarily destabilize. This comes into psychology of change. If you want to go into that and go into a rabbit hole some night about that, people don't change well. That's the reason we have routines and habits in our world, because humans like predictability. And as soon as you move somebody's cheese, they could be very upset about that. So managing cheese movement is very important. So let's move on to another topic. This is great stuff, but I want to be sure that we don't run out of time. What do SMBs look like in 12 months? So you're going to put on your
Futuristic, right?
What was that guy that used to, Johnny Carson used to do that, anyways, there's a $100 billion chip factory breaking ground in New York. I'm not sure if you're aware of this. Capabilities that only Fortune 500 companies could access 18 months ago, let's say, will be table stakes for SMBs in 2027, by early 2027. The businesses that win won't be the ones that adopted the fastest. They'll be the ones that adopted the smartest. Okay. So you're already kind of ahead of the curve. I'm going to say you're ahead of the curve on that. But for small, mid-sized businesses themselves within 12 months, put on your, I can't remember that guy that was like a little, he put the hat on and stuff like that. Ashton has that. So you're going to put on your, your fortune teller.
Yeah.
What do you see happening with the small, mid-sized? Forget the big guys. The big guys that got deep pockets, they got tons of money. They got IT departments. That's not like whatever, 80% of our, or maybe 50 to 80% of our market is small mid-sized companies, right? So they're the ones with limited resources. What do you see AI in 12 months?
Oh, that's a big question.
Maybe just within your context too.
Well, let's start like really small companies, like your mom and pop, few employees, 10-ish, no more than that, right? AI is going to be the worker that you can't afford, right? And what I mean by that is like, okay, you want to hire somebody, but you don't have the time to do a job description or a ZipRecruiter job post. AI can do that for you within seconds, right? You don't have to like sit down after you did a long day of work and like sit at the kitchen table and write out some type of job post that you're trying to get out there, right? Or, we've started using it just to see what it does around resume scoring. We're still 100% involved in it, but as we get resumes to see how AI, like, here's the job description, here's the resume. What do you think that this person would bring to the table and score it? Not that it is the end all be all. You're like, well, they scored it a 1. We're not going to look at it. No, that's not what we're going to do, but it will help us learn more. So from the small businesses, it's all those ankle biter tasks or knowledge base where like, I don't know where to go with this. I'm only a mom and pop, under 10. AI is a great resource. It's better than Google because you're going to go to Google and you're going to get 100 websites. And or an AI like chat is going to give you something in seconds. And then you move up the scale, to your 10 to 20, your 30, your 40. It's going to, I feel like it's going to be more of a consultation, a consultant to all the departments on anything from conflict management. If you have like 2 people in a department that are kind of riffing, to be like, okay, well, I can go to my HR but then I have to file something, and get it on record. And you can go to like, okay, I manage these 2 people. They have these personalities. Help me help them, out of it. And we've seen a success in just having another viewpoint on it. And I think that's going to be huge. And that's where I hope we are, to where every department's using it more of a resource to better the department. And then also when you get in your 20 and 20, 30, 40, you're looking at, SOPs, right? And saying, okay, we have procedures, we have to document these, right? Especially if you're a growth company. We've leveraged that to look at our SOPs and just be like, here's our SOP for this department. This is what they do. Here's all the metrics. How good is this? And it analyzes it and says, well, you're missing this, right?
Yeah.
We've done, and then as you go up, like I was talking to some merger and acquisition people at a previous event, and that they're looking at the same thing. I'm saying like, well, wait a minute, as we're talking, a deal that went south that we spent 3 months of labor on doing, where at the end of the day, the government wouldn't allow the SBA loan, right? It was one of the type of acquisitions, and they said, I'm going to go back to AI and I'm going to put in what I knew at the beginning to see if it would have found, yeah, that's not going to work, and we could have saved 3 months of just wasted labor, right? So there's, if you have an ego, AI is not your tool. If you are a learner and you're curious and you're willing to improve yourself or your people around you, it's your tool, right?
Yeah, that goes for all of running a business, right? A growth mindset is what's necessary. That's what you're describing, right? Being curious, try something. it might be, oh my gosh, I don't feel comfortable, but you're going to try it. I love that analogy, your kind of breakdown there. And the reason I love it is because it's the employee that you can't afford. That is absolutely true. And think of the employee. It's really, you've got tasks to be performed that you need to be done. And you're only one person or 4 people or 5 people, but there's tasks to be performed. There's a marketing task. There's a sales task. There's some kind of a analysis task. And you're like, just like you said, then you've got that other layer. This is, that's the third layer, is consultative. I love that one too. You can put pieces of that at these different layers. I love the idea of using it for internal uses. Every one of these is valid. We've seen it across the board with our clients. We got hundreds of clients, and they're using it in little pieces just like this. But it all stems from the same growth mindset. You got to have. There has to be a willingness of curiosity to say, we're gonna ignore, back to the very beginning of this whole thing. You got to ignore the hype. You have to ignore the skepticism. You have to ignore the doom and gloom. You have to ignore that, because this is a powerful tool of taking tasks that we normally perform. And that's what I would recommend as, like, if I was to have like a covering over everything you just described, is if I am doing something manually, or I am reading something in order to gain whatever information, to make a decision, to help with the business. If I'm reading something, I probably have an AI solution that's going to aid me. Like, why am I? And here's an example from one of our team members. Just came up. Project manager, working with engineers to develop requirements, and those engineers are working with business leaders to understand what their objectives are, what their outcomes are. AI is collecting that through conversation, through surfacing, creating task lists that now can be imported into a project management tool. That, if you look at what they had to do prior to AI, was that had to be manually done. They had to glean manually out of conversations, note taking, right? It is a low cognitive function that is best suited for a machine to do. And the machines, especially, I love when you're talking about like the smaller company size. Technology has always been infinite leverage. You almost can get infinite leverage from technology. You can take the dollar spend, okay, and you can get out of that an incredible $20 a month for a ChatGPT license that's going to save you hours and hours and hours. And then you replicate that across multiple people throughout your organization. That is an incredible amount of value for a very little investment. Right. They were going to do the work. They were going to do the work anyways. Right. They just had to do it like this. That is the dumbest thing going into the future. It's look at those things where your hands on keyboard, reading something, just transferring something from one place to another. You're reading 5 or 6 things. You're going, how, like the SBA loan thing, you're like, how would I have been able to ever see that complexity that you would have potentially had to hire an attorney or this and that, and you would have had to spend hours and hours and hours. It's like, let it find the gaps in it's a language model that's built for language. If anything that's language based, you should not be doing anything language based unless you're in an AI right now. It's in the name, large language model. It's built on language. Yes. To leverage it. Anyway, so thank you for that. Let's move on. Let's do some rapid fire. Oh boy. This is lightning round, ladies and gentlemen.
What's my prize?
A Jack 500 for AI adoption. Okay, so you're using AI daily, right? So you're not just telling people to do this. So honestly, this is now a true co-pilot for you.
Yes.
Okay. And how do you communicate that? Like, how are you now communicating that to others?
Showing examples, communicating like what I've done, because I think I have a unique skill set from my 20 plus years in the business and a creative background to like be creative with the prompts, and understanding the solutions is kind of a strong skill set of mine. So when I use it in whatever capacity, and it's for a department, it's for analysis for somebody, or like, hey, let me do it and let me run it through AI, right? And I will take tasks from people. And I want to redefine tasks really quick. Tasks are not just I have to take a piece of paper and move it from place A to place B,
Hmm.
but it's more of like I need to review it. Like I was just talking to my operations manager on to explaining more about AI, and I was like, "Look, I might tell you to go research something and get back to me in 3 days, and then let's talk about it. What you find. I don't have to do that anymore. I don't devalue you. I can go to AI and get that same results or something very close to it within seconds. That allows you to go do other things than go research stuff for me, right?
Hmm.
And so I constantly use those case studies, like no matter how little it is, and communicate. I used AI to do this. Look what it did. I put this in, and this is what it
Okay,
provided.
so here's the $1 million question.
Oh, boy.
So now, what are you doing with that knowledge that you're gaining? Where do you put that? Like you're gaining tool knowledge,
Mhm,
and you're actually creating best practices.
mhm.
Okay, so what are you doing with that at this point?
As of Monday, this upcoming Monday,
Hmm.
I built a organically built, not from any like, I'm going to go build this. I organically built a small little committee of people who were very interested in when I was talking and asking more questions like, well, will it do this? Well, how did you think about how did you know to put that in? Anything like that. And the people that I just knew had a desire for, okay, well, give me the key. Right. And so these are I got them licenses this week and we're meeting on Monday together and I said very clearly, I am not an expert. I have figured out how to get to where I am today,
Hmm.
and I just want to show you what I do to get the best results today. And so we have a meeting on Monday, and I'm going to sit there and we're just going to play. We literally, I think it's an hour and a half meeting, and we're just going to play. I'm going to explain like the setup of the user interface and what a project is. Once again, using ChatGPT.
Hmm.
And like go through a list and have a handout of like, these are all the areas of where I've used it to get their brains working on what I could use it for. And those people who I already got licenses, I've been like, kind of like throwing little nuggets at it to be like, hey, you should see what AI does with that. Oh, yeah. I'm like, let's talk about it on Monday.
So
Right?
have you thought about taking like those insights that you have and also your knowledge in ChatGPT and creating an agent that replicates you?
I know it's possible.
Basically
Yeah.
a WWJD. What would Jonathan do? Agent. Have you considered that?
I I haven't considered it. I like to be one on one with people or in group settings and read body language to make sure that like, oh, I'm losing them, right?
Hmm.
And I'm very passionate about making this a success, and everybody has a positive experience through it. That is a great tool, and that's a perfect example of a tool that you can do to facilitate a workflow. I am not sold on that tools like that are necessary everywhere in the business. I'm not putting them in front of my employees to be in between to me and them, our customers. So yes, I could do that. It'd
Hmm.
be very low priority on my list because I would rather work with them and train them and teach them than say, hey, go see my what would Jonathan do tool.
Okay. Well, on that note, then, what would it take for you to trust AI enough to let it talk to your customers? What would it
Good
take?
question. I've been asked this. Um, a lot. So, and the reason why I say a lot is because to me, I know AI has been around for years, but from a business application standpoint, for me internally, it's only been a few months. But from what I've known on the industry of AI, like the people I know in my circles, we're only within a year to 2 years where businesses in my circles have been using it. So there's still a lot to uh, build for trust on what it can do. How can it go rogue, right? You have a computer. Everyone has computers, right? We grew up with most of us grew up with computers. We know it's not going to jump off the table and attack us, right?
Not yet.
Not yet, right? So there's social boundaries of products that it's not going to happen. But with AI, there's an unknown because it's so new that there's not, we're in the copier business. You walk up and down the street, you pick anybody, you say, do you know what a copier is? Yes or no? And they're going to say yes, because it's society's knowledge. It's a baseline. And with AI, we're not there yet with a baseline for society, right?
Mhm.
So yes, I know it's happening. Yes, I've received a phone call, definitely received emails that are AI generated. So I know it's happening. I'm not naive to that, but where I'm more in tune to is when society accepts that a business is going to communicate to me via AI, right? And sure, I make 1,000 phone calls or emails with AI. I'm going to get maybe one response or two, or maybe I get 10. I don't know. But it's when society says I'm okay for an AI agent to call me or email me, and I know that I'm going to interface with. We've had AI chatbots for years, right? You like them or hate them, it's your own personal opinion, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, when it comes to like the customer experience, the customer interaction,
Mhm.
it's going to work on some people who don't want to talk to people,
Yeah,
right?
it almost sounds like as a because we see the same thing. Like the core of business interaction is relationships. Even
Mhm.
though you've got a product, I got service, product, whatever, it doesn't matter. At the core of it's still a relationship.
Correct.
So depending upon how that interaction is that gets in the way of a relationship, that's one thing. If it's just, can you give me status on order 2358? I'd really like to know what's the hold up there.
Yes.
I could see an AI being really good for that. Just go boom, very specific. I just need a transactional piece of information, as opposed to, I'm trying to come up with a new copier managed print solution for my business. Can you help me? Oh, sure. Let's talk about that. You're probably not going to do that. You're going to need that human to understand the greater context, right? Have you had a staff member push back?
Yes.
Okay. So tell me, how did you handle that?
um,
And what was that pushback like?
sure.
I'm curious.
Yeah. So it was in one of our leadership meetings where I was explaining, this was early on in January, where I'm like, I want to be very transparent where I'm going with AI. So your staff knows that when they start hearing things that they're not going to get a negative feeling about it. And I could see one of my leaders' face kind of change and body language change. And she ended up saying she wasn't basically for it. And I asked why. And it was due to an experience, or multiple experience she has outside of the company with AI, and that she had just had bad interactions with it, and it wasn't customer facing. And when Jonathan starts talking about AI, that's where her brain went to be like, but we're all about the customer. How is this going to work? And I looked at her and I said, I am not going to use AI to facilitate any type of customer interaction or relationship. That is not the goal right now. I will use it to improve it. I'm like, how do we do this better? And just once I said that, she was a lot more calm and says, okay, now I see your vision. And that same person, about a day later, sent me an email. Can AI help us do this? And I'm like, okay, she's bought it. She's good. Like, because now
Yes.
she's looking in her world on her ankle biters, that low hanging fruit to say,
Yeah.
well, wait a minute. How can it help me now?
Okay. So you touched on something I'd like to point out, and I think it's really important for people to hear in general, which is the communication about what this is as important as what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because people have preconceived notions about AI. Again, it's coming from the tick.
Yeah.
The technology industrial complex is overloading us with everything from, this is the best thing that's ever going to happen. It's going to change your world. It's going to get rid of people because it's going to be this, this this new world of nobody has to do any work. Elon Musk even was talking about that. Like this whole concept of AI is going to replace our need to do any kind of work. But anyways, so that person might be hearing that, right? They're hearing what's out in the world. And unfortunately, our job as business leaders is to be able to cut through that and say, okay, let me tell you what it's going to be like here.
Yes.
That is important, as opposed to just saying, we're implementing AI in the company. That was way too broad of a statement. You can't do that
No.
in any business. It's almost like it's like changing the direction and the values which got them there, right?
Yeah. If you do too broad of a statement, the employees will make up their own stories, right? Negative, positive, or negative. So the more you can say, okay, this is what we're going to do, is where the benefit is. When I started, I knew that people were talking. Well, I'm glad to hear Jonathan's looking into it. That was step one. So we were in a company not looking into it to be like, well, what are we going to do? Like, why aren't they talking about it? So I want to make sure I got out there first to say, I'm looking into it. I don't know anything about it, but it's on my priority list. And then went from there.
Okay, so I think you should come up with a little guide on how to communicate AI change. Do you have a question for me?
Excuse me.
Your turn. Ask me one.
So for those who have used AI, you have chat, you have Claude, you have Anthropic, you have Gemini, you have then tools within those.
Mhm.
You can connect those to different tools.
Mm-hmm.
Some tools are good for podcasts. Some tools are good for marketing. Some tools are good for legal. From your standpoint of being Blackline IT and AI and helping businesses like ours, how are you going to approach looking at a business, trying to understand what their pain points are, and then going to the wild, wild west of, well, chat's going to be better, or Gemini is going to be better, or Claude's going to be better, or all three of them you need because of X, Y, and Z. And then the next layer of, well, in chat, you also need to do these add-ons or these apps and this, or we need to build you a tool. From my point of view, it's a black hole of options, right? Because we're going back to my comment on you walk up and down the street, you pick one person, say, do you know what a copier is? And they say yes. Right? I would say 99.9% of people are going to say yes. And what I see and what I think the next struggle is going to be with businesses, because I see it coming for us, is okay, we've adopted AI of some degree, consultative or task manager. How do we know the tools to better leverage it? Because you have the platforms. So you have your choice of platform. That's problem number one.
Mhm.
1, 2, 3, all. And then you have, well, I know what that can do, but now I have Jody can build me tools based on what my needs are. There are apps that I can connect to. There are also other companies that are pitching agents that they can do. Well,
Mhm.
yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to do. And they're pitching me an agent, right? And that, to me, I think that is the next layer of finding the software option that's going to fit the business need to the best, because it's not just Microsoft or Apple anymore.
Yeah. So what you're asking is, what is Blackline? What is our approach? How about this? What's our professional opinion about AI deployment?
And the options to
Right.
facilitate and strengthen businesses.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to talk about too much about the individual tools themselves. I'm going to talk a little bit more abstractly,
Sure.
and then it can fit in wherever. So, what the tech industrial complex has done and always has, it's a super Walmart of tools and technologies and platforms and solutions and software. It's huge. Okay. What our objective always has been as let's just call it as technology counsel for our customers. Okay. Is that we lock arms as we go into the Walmart, and then I take you to the right aisle and I say, oh, you need a little bit of this. Let's go around over here. You need a little bit of that, because that matches your specific outcome. So that drives everything. It's not the tool that drives it, which is what the tick wants you to do. They want to descend upon you and throw an agent. They want to throw a tech, a SaaS system. They want to do that because it becomes a sell as opposed to what's really what the outcome that you're looking for. Okay. So that's number one. We're going to look for what's the outcome? What's the objective of this specific business? What are their economic and their time period, their time horizon restrictions? Those all go into the into the sauce in terms of what comes out of it. Okay. Um, And then when it comes to the tools themselves, they all have positives, negatives along that. They've got capabilities that are better than others. Claude is a better solution for technical organizations, code generation, the capabilities that it has to create agents and agentic. ChatGPT is a little bit more on the consumer side. Look at it that way. Gemini, great product for doing general use as well. And then you have Copilot through Microsoft, which exists inside of the Microsoft ecosystem, which is also very positive, meaning that, let's say, for example, your use case is one or an organization's use case is one where it maybe doesn't have a ton of, let's just call it, cognitive functions to replace, but it sure would be great if it could know about my email and about my SharePoint and about my Excel and Word docs that I have, and I want to somehow create, some knowledge about what's happening across the company. That's great collaboration tool. That's different maybe than I'm trying to move into a new marketplace. I need Perplexity, which is an incredible research tool that's going to help me create the business case around me taking advantage of a new opportunity. And then using that for, like, it depends upon what the objectives happen to be. Then on top of all that, it's security, it's accessibility, it's governance, which we haven't really talked a whole lot about here, but you have a different approach because you've got some built-in governance because you're the brain. Mm-hmm. A lot of other organizations, they rely upon a council to do that. They need governance. How are we approaching this in a thoughtful way, which is not only going to accomplish the business objective we got, but it also is not going to open us up to a compliance problem. It's not going to release my data to the outside world, which would be a really bad thing. It's going to be unfettered use of certain technologies that is shadow IT through an organization. No, we're going to create some boundaries around it. That's another layer, right? Which is governance around the tech and its implementation. How are licenses procured? You get the right level of that licensing. Those are all things that a guy in your position who's got a deep history of technological innovation, you're in the 90th percentile of leaders. There's a whole group of leaders who don't have that same vantage point, and also this is called the disciplines inside the organization to be sure that you don't wake up one day and go, holy crap, I've got $2,000 a month worth of AI spend that just went out of nowhere because I can pick this and then this tool, and oh my God, I can connect this up. And then you got 5 other people in the organization doing the same thing, and you're sucking up tokens, and you got to go to the next level. The tick loves that. Upsell, upsell, upsell. You know that. It's built that way. It's built like they give you the crack, right? Hey man, just a little taste, just going to let you, and oh my God, I want more. And then you're a customer and you're doing crack every day, and you're there.
ERP licenses.
You're on, oh my gosh, yeah. You're on AI crack right now, man. You're like, bring it on. Give me another tool. I can see other, anyways. So hopefully that answered your question. It's nuanced, but it usually falls into a couple of different categories. We want to get the right tool to match the outcome. We want to put some guidance around it. We make sure that there's governance, security, right? And then we do what you're doing naturally. We're going to be looking at results and iterate because the industry is too fluid. And what we come up with together in the next 3 months could morph in 6 months. And so you just got to be dynamic about it. So in closing, here's the takeaway. AI, of course, is real. It's here. It's not going anywhere. It's going to continue to advance us and advance our businesses. It's getting louder. It's also maybe even a little bit some fear, kind of growing up in that. And the ones who have the judgment to know the difference between what is hype, what's real, and have discipline around it, I believe. I believe that's what I would call technology intelligence, that together. What's your takeaway? What is, if you're just, give somebody kind of your, you got a business person who comes up to you and says, I saw your podcast, and just tell me, like, what's the 1 or 2 things I need to know?
It's not going away. I don't, it's not a hype from okay, in 6, 12 months, 24 months, like we're going to look back and be like, oh, that was nothing, right? It's going to land somewhere in the middle where all businesses will be using it in some capacity. I'm pretty fairly confident about that. And if like I've told some of my friends who have not started using it, is just take a step. Knowing and understanding is not going away. Every day that you wait is just one more day you're going to be behind, because it's moving. Like technology alone moves fast, right? You buy a computer and then it's out of date. You're like, oh, well, I want the better one that's faster and bigger screens, like in 6 months or less. AI is faster than that, right? Like every week, I follow so much, almost probably too much online on all the AI companies and what they're saying and what the consultants are saying and everything. And every week, if you look through the noise, it's moving forward, right? There's a lot of negativity. There's a lot of positivity. But if you like really look at the core of the product and what its capabilities can be, my knowledge is moving every day. So like you have that variable too. So you not only have the variable of the platforms moving or the tools are moving and getting better, but then your own knowledge of saying, oh, I learned this today and now I could apply this somewhere else. So I'm actually to a point where like I have so much AI work because I know what its capabilities and how to apply it in the business. Now I have to prioritize what AI work I'm doing.
I have the same
And
problem.
and to imagine starting, I felt like I already started late. I was on a webinar yesterday. I was listening, and they started in January of 2025, and I'm like, oh my, you've had 12 months before me to get your hands on this, and they were still behind a little bit in my opinion. So take a step forward, learn everything you can, be humble about it, don't have an ego. When I say that to like reiterate it, you are good at your job, but everyone can be better. I
Yeah.
don't care who you are.
Okay.
So if you walk that way and say, hey, I'm going to use it to improve myself and improve my teams and improve my company, you'll be super successful.
I love it. So if I was to take one thing out of what you just said, it would be just start.
Just
If you haven't started, just start. And if you have started, go into it with a little bit of structure and you're going to be really happy that you did. I feel exactly the same way. Well, thank you for being honest. I think business leaders need to hear this. That's what the Blackline brief was intended. This whole concept is intended is to take technology concepts and what we're seeing in the field that affects real companies and get it real so that business leaders can make, especially small, mid-sized business leaders can actually make real decisions around it. So thank you so much.
thank you. Appreciate being here.
Yeah. Till next time.
Till next time.